Hi, it's Mitzie from Jittery Wings Quilt Company, and we're back this time with my friend and studio assistant, Kelly, to work through the Brave Beginner Quilt Course. And in this episode, we're going to be talking specifically about pressing your fabrics. So as always, we'll start with any questions that Kelly has.
Pressing. So what's the difference between pressing and ironing?
Yeah, because I do say pressing a lot, don't I?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, so there is a huge difference between pressing and ironing, and we're going to show you that on a video. But essentially, pressing means that you set the iron down and hold it there for the heat to make the fabric flat. Ironing is like sliding the iron across your fabrics. And what happens when you iron a shirt, for example, like if you're ironing your best shirt, when you iron and you push the fabric around, there are already seams. There are already, what are these?
Stitches, hems.
Hems. There's already a hem. And so you're less likely to warp or distort the fabric. But when you have a free flowing piece of fabric that's been cut along the edge, or particularly a little small square that you're trying to keep the same size, if you push on it, you're going to push the fabric out of shape. You're going to loosen up the warp and the weft, which is the direction that the weave happens. Like you have threads going this way and threads going this way that weave together. So we press, meaning we press down on it, pick up the iron, move it, and press in another spot to get it flat.
What setting on your iron? Pretty much everything I iron at home, I put on steam because it's usually pretty wrinkled.
Yeah. Okay, so I like to press my cotton fabrics on the highest setting that it has because I think it works better. And when it comes to steam, so I have Best Press here, which I use all the time. Any kind of starch is fine. This is just the one I use. And I put it in this mister bottle. Right. We don't sell these. I just put my sticker on it. But this will mist it all over so it's not like in clumps or big like droplets.
The can starch.
Yeah, I don't use that, but I'm sure it's the same concept, that it's misting it and spraying it all over. And I don't water it down. And the reason for that is because if you saw the last episode and I talked about pre-washing, I don't pre-wash. So if I use water and I steam a fat quarter bundle that is not pre-washed, it will shrink my fabrics. They're not pre-shrunk. So I have, because when we do retreats, I want to make sure people know this is Best Press only. And then somebody usually brings a spray bottle with water and they'll spray water and steam. I don't put any water in my irons to steam. I use it separate. I use this separate. But if you pre-wash, then you can use water, cheaper, simpler. You can steam it. If you don't, then I recommend using some kind of starch. I also like starch for another reason. Starch, particularly if you're making something that is curved or diagonal, like a triangle, starch will stiffen the fabric and help keep its shape while you're moving it around to sew it and manipulate it and do things with it. And I find that the starch helps with that. But mostly I use starch because it helps me get the wrinkles out.
Right.
Yeah. So let's go over to the video and show you how to press. I'm going to teach Kelly how to press these and get them prepped and ready. We missed the wooden thing. As soon as we turned the camera off, Kelly went, "What's that wooden thing?" What is the wooden thing? So this is a clapper. It's called a clapper. I don't know why they call it that, but that's what it's called. And essentially, I don't use it when I'm prepping fat quarters, but essentially, when you're pressing seams open, and we'll show you this when we get to it, but when you put the iron on and you press down, the heat gets in the fabric.
Right.
If you take a wooden clapper and set it on the seam and press down on it, it traps the heat in there and it helps make the seam flatter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so it actually, this is used in garment sewing too.
Right.
But it's a great tool. And then maybe we should also talk about this mat is a wool pressing mat. I like the wool pressing mats as opposed to like an ironing board. Mostly ironing boards get in my way and I just don't like them. But the wool pressing mat will hold the heat also. And instead of the heat coming just from the top, it's coming from both sides, and that makes a stronger, crisper press when you're quilting.
Okay.
Yeah. Did I miss anything else? Is that all of it? Before we go to the...
Probably not, but we can move on.
Okay, we'll move on. Okay, so we're back at the pressing table, and we have a beautiful fat quarter bundle of 12 fat quarters, which we're going to use to make the Sidewalk Cracks Mini. What we teach here about pressing can be applied to any pattern, any quilt that you're making at home. But I'm going to also talk about some efficiencies in pressing that will help make this feel better as you make it. Okay. So the first thing I do is for efficiency is keep them in order.
Okay.
I like to press them in order and cut them in order and keep them in order because a lot of my patterns in particular require colors to be in color flow order. So we're going to keep them in order. And the first thing is just to open up the fat quarter. And let's talk about first what you have when you have a fat quarter, because you also have it in yardage too, and that is the selvage. Okay,
that's the dotty part.
Yeah, the dotty part. So the dotty part is what gets hooked onto the machines when they make the fabric to run it through the machine. And fabric comes with two sides. So these are two different colors, but they have both sides of the selvage. So we can use this to show you. So one side of the selvage of fabric typically has the brand, what kind of fabric it is, what it's made out of, who the designer is. And some of them are really pretty and people keep them and make cool stuff out of them. And the other side generally has just a basic side, particularly with solids. And you want to make sure this doesn't get in the quilt where the little dots are, because it's a much tighter weave. There's some other stuff going on in here that keeps the fabric from giving. So when I press out my fat quarters, I always try to put my selvage on the same side.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing to note is that a width of fabric is selvage to selvage. So this is one side of the fabric. This is the other side of the fabric. Right. And for fat quarters, we've cut them in half because a fat quarter, you get 4 of them out of a yard of fabric. So there's typically a crease here that we cut off. And Kelly's very familiar with that because she does all of that here in the studio. So if you're pressing fat quarters, you want to have your side where the crease has been cut off and your selvages on the same side. If you're cutting yardage, or pressing yardage, it's okay to have your selvages here the way it came off of the bolt, and then to have your crease on the same side. Okay.
And this is, did we talk about it's a quarter? Because this is half a yard.
Yeah.
And then it's half of a half, which is a quarter.
Yep. Which is
did we talk about that last time?
It's called a fat quarter.
I can't remember.
I can't remember either. But yes, it is a quarter of a yard. A fat quarter is a quarter of a yard, because this is half a yard from here to here. So a yard would be another 18 inches this way. Most widths of fabric are 42, 44 inches. So that makes the width of the fat quarter about 20 to 21 inches, 22 inches. Okay.
Okay.
So let's move this second fat quarter and start with 1.
So you only press 1 at a time.
So yes, you press 1 at a time, and you can see where it was folded that it's going to be really wrinkled, right? So go ahead and just press.
So just put it down.
Find a spot and put it down, and then lift it up and see how it did. I don't use starch unless I absolutely have to. Let's see what that does. Yeah. Okay.
Is there a certain amount of time? Do you? Obviously, you don't want to scorch the fabric,
right? And so you can see here, it kind of picked up a little bit of the shape of the iron. So that's a little bit too long.
Okay.
And it's going to need some help. It didn't. So so this is a mister. Let me hold it to the side so you can kind of see it just mists on there. And this is too heavy. I did it too long here. This feels better over here.
And that's a little heavy there.
And that's a little heavy there because I was trying to show them. But now might be because it's a new mat. You can move it a little. Let's let me show you. So I kind of put it down, and I don't just push, but I kind of lift a little and then press again. So it's still kind of touching the fabric.
So it's getting some of the heat.
Yes, it's getting the heat, and it's not keeping the iron in one place so that it does the
imprint of the iron.
Yeah, the imprint. So it's like and this is particularly important when you are pressing seams. When you're doing your first kind of round, so it looks like I'm sliding, but I'm pressing and then I'm like lifting a little and sliding. So try that and see how that goes.
Okay.
I've never seen it do that before. That's kind of interesting that I think it must be this new mat that's really absorbing that heat. Yeah, perfect. Okay. So this is the long monotonous part. All right.
Okay.
So we're going to finish this one out. And then for efficiency, what I like to do on the mat is I literally just keep stacking them on top. And when I cut them, we're going to teach you to cut one at a time, but we also want you to improve your skills along the way. And so I cut a couple at a time. And I have learned that if I press them together, they cut better together.
Oh, okay.
And so I always line up my selvage. Yep. Line up my selvage side, and then I line up one other of the long sides, because then when I put it on the table to cut it, this is really close and I can just clean up this edge without wasting a ton of fabric.
Okay.
So, and this is usually, not for all of my patterns, but usually this is the first side that you cut for most of the patterns.
Okay.
Okay, so you're just gonna keep spraying and pressing and spraying and pressing until you get all of them done. And then we're gonna move over to the cutting table and I'm gonna teach you how to use a rotary cutter.
Okay.
Okay.